We, again, are so excited for you to be here today. Thank you for joining us. Um, South Carolina Women in Leadership is a multi-partisan group of women working together across differences to move South Carolina forward by informing, inspiring, and involving women in leadership. And today, as a massive movement for social justice continues to sweep our country, our mission is more important than ever. We believe as talented women with diverse and inclusive backgrounds, like all of you, step up to lead and to govern, that gender and racial equality, as well as community equity, will at last become a reality. And you all know that we're here today to help competent and confident women like you gain the knowledge to step forward and seek positions on local and statewide appointed boards and commissions. And we want to find the boards that best suit your experience and interests or help you find those boards. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Bank of America, for their leadership. This is the second year that they have helped us with our Springboard Conference, and we're so grateful to them. Springboard is also made possible with the support of Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina. And throughout the day today, we would love for you to live post on social media if you're so inclined. Our tags all across social media are at SC Women Lead. That's at SC Women Lead. So we would love for you to tell folks what's happening during the conference and what you think about what we're doing. I also want to note that we are using the same link all day long. So we're all grown-ups. I know that sometimes you need to go get a drink or step away for a moment. Your audio is muted and your video is hidden. So certainly you can step away just for a moment, but if you do need to leave, you can rejoin at any time. You can come in and out as you need to throughout the day. And we'll guide you along as we move through the sessions in terms of, there may be some times where we'll put you back in the waiting room if we have a break, but that link should work for you in and out all day. We encourage you to use the chat throughout the day to make comments and share ideas. And we're using Slido today for questions. We do not have a separate question and answer section. And so we would love for you I'm going to show you what the slide will look like. This is where we're going to post questions. We'll bring it in and out depending on whether our presenters have slide decks to share with you. But when you enter the information, and there's also a link in the chat, and Eleanor will put that in again, you can link directly there. You type your questions in, and they're going to come right up on here live for us all to interact. Sometimes things get lost in the chat, and so this is just a way for us to share that with everyone without having any confusion. And you can see that if you do go to sli.do and then use the hashtag Springboard, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. And right here, you can see that you enter your hashtag. So there's two ways to get there, both pretty simple. So I think that we have handled all of our housekeeping. And thank you for being patient with us. We have someone that we're so excited to talk to this morning, and welcome Calandra Jarrell. She's the Diversity and Inclusiveness Executive with Bank of America, and she's our keynote today. And we say keynote, but we're really just going to chat. We're going to have a little fireside chat. I don't know if we have a fire this morning, if we need that, but we're going to have a really fun conversation with her. And in her role as a diversity and inclusiveness executive, Calandra is responsible for the strategy and execution of programs, processes, and initiatives focused on increasing the representation, investment, and advancement of underrepresented talent. She is a proud alumna of Hampton University, and she and her family live in Lawrenceville, Virginia, where she's an active member of the Parent Advocacy Council, the local NAACP, and Communities in Schools. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Women's
Absolutely.
History Month.
So let's jump right in. We are so excited to have you here, and we'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. Now, I've talked to you a little bit, so I think I know the answer to this question already just from talking with you for a little bit, but are you a born leader, or was stepping into leadership something that you had to get comfortable with as you grew professionally and personally?
I had to get comfortable with leadership. People think I'm an extrovert, but I'm extremely an introvert. And how that shows up for me in leadership or work, I think everyone's a leader. First of all, I think it's whether you're out front as a leader or you're the behind the scenes leader. So it's very interesting. I'm very much a born leader in my home, in my family. Like a lot of women, I'm playing A, B, and C at home. At work, I am more of an introvert. I love to see things come together behind the scenes, be the support, the utility player. I call it the Scottie Pippen to the Michael Jordans. I'm a sports fan. But so I had to grow into being out front and getting comfortable. Leadership takes presence, it takes, relationship building, it takes gravitas. And some of that can be exhausting when you do it at home or when that's not the only place you do it, right? So I try to use work to kind of stay behind the scenes. But I think over the past 3 years, I've been thrust to the forefront just based on external factors and what's happening in the world. And diversity and inclusion is now on the tip of everybody's tongues and the top of everyone's mind. So, long answer to your short question. I was not born a leader. I like to think I grew into it, and I met the moment.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the roles that you've held at Bank of America as you were growing.
Sure. So my favorite part of this journey is looking back over my shoulder. I remember I when I finished Hampton, moved to New York City, and I wanted to be a buyer at so I got a job at Bloomingdale's, and I ended up leaving most of my paycheck in Bloomingdale's in New York, and I realized, okay, this isn't going to work for me. It's hard to live up here, and I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and really just stepped out on faith. Didn't have a role when I got to Charlotte, and took the first job at Bank of America that someone offered me, which was an administrative assistant. So I give you that context to say that I started on the front lines as an administrative assistant, answering phones. At that time, it was 1997. Doing grunge work, get doing anything that was asked of me. Very, very, very entry level position. And it was probably the best job I ever had because I got to learn from some of the most senior executives at the company. I got to watch how they moved. I got to understand the power of relationship building, and that is so key. Whether you're going to be on a corporate board, whether you're at work in your environment, whether you're in your community, relationships and networking and building trust is fundamental. And I got to see that firsthand operating in that role. Someone saw me, they saw my work ethic, my passion. I've come from a very humble beginnings, manual blue collar workers down here, up here in the north. I forgot I'm talking to South Carolinians. I'm up north today. I come from a very humble beginnings. I'm a first generation college grad, first generation corporate America. So I brought a work ethic, bring your lunchbox to work type mentality. And a couple of executives saw that and invested in me. And then I got promoted to a marketing analyst role. I did several stints in the actual business. I had one job where I was in a room about as big as a box auditing mortgage loan files. And I joke and say, if the building was on fire, they would have forgotten that I was in the room. That's how small this office was, just full of loan files. And then I think I ended up networking. We have 11 employee networks at Bank of America, and one of them is the Black Professional Group. And I started getting involved in that and just finding my passion. So put a pin in that. Get involved where your passion lies. And I think my gifts just made room for me, and somebody saw me and noticed me and wanted to partner with me. And that's how I got my first HR role as a facilitator. Got trained to do that, went to the University of Richmond, Robbins Business Management School, and built that craft around facilitating professionally. And then things just started to take off. The more visible I became, the more I got involved, the more I contributed, leading with a yes. And then here we are, 25 years later, and I'm doing diversity, which I like to think every assignment that I had got me to this point. So I think your gifts will make room for you. Networking and relationship building, and not being afraid or too big or too educated or too experienced to do the grunge work because somebody will notice it. And then just being prepared when the opportunity comes.
Yeah, I think your story is really drives home the point of what we want to talk about all day today, and that is leading from the ground up. And you talk about sort of the grunt work, but it's important for leaders to know all of the different things that happen all along the way in the process. And I think it's the same with boards and commissions and civic and community service. You've
Right.
got to start somewhere. And once you get in there and people see that you're bright and that you're a hard worker, that there are opportunities that will present themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in that journey, what are some barriers that you feel like you've encountered because you're a woman, because you're a woman of color? How did you deal with those? And maybe what were some things that you thought were going to be barriers that weren't? I mean, I think that's one thing that women do a lot of times is we think, I'm not good enough at this, or this is going to happen. And it turns out that it may not really even be an issue.
That's right.
That, women tend to, if they apply for the same job and they have the same qualifications, that they will think themselves not qualified, while a man who is less qualified, thinks that he's the one that ought to
Yeah.
have
Well,
the
I'll figure
job.
it out when I get in
So yeah,
there.
just
Yeah. That's right.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So tell us about, I mean, have you felt like you faced barriers?
absolutely.
What were they? How did you overcome them?
Absolutely. I think all of us face barriers, right? Regardless of how you show up in the workplace. Again, our experiences inform us. And again, first generation college, first generation corporate America, I didn't understand, and this is Calandra speak, not Bank of America speak. I didn't understand how the game was played. So because of the way I grew up, I thought that if I got to work early, stayed late, didn't take sick days, outworked everybody, that would get me promoted. Now that might keep your job, but barrier number one, or challenge number one, I didn't understand corporate politics and the need to be politically savvy, and the importance of being visible in relationships, and how sponsorship was so important. I thought it was just all about work, work, work. And you get frustrated when you see people to your left and your right growing at a faster pace, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? Well, I thought I was building good relationships, but I wasn't building them at the level that I needed to. Again, conversations at my dad's dinner table, after he worked all day, was not, I'm gonna have the boss over for dinner, or we're gonna go play golf, or I got a presentation to the board. I had to figure this out as I grew my career. So challenge number one, I just didn't have the information, right? And once I understood what corporate politics looked like, and how the game was played, then I can adjust, and I learned to pivot, and without losing my authenticity. So that's the second piece. Showing up authentically, unapologetically, a Black African American and a woman. And I identify more so first and foremost as a woman. I am so big on gender parity, women's initiatives. I was so excited when I was asked to do this. But then I think showing up the way I show up, being my authentic self. Again, I'm one of the first, and I want everybody on the call, think about how many of us are first, right? So I wanted to make sure that I didn't compromise, or and in my family, you don't want to be a sellout. So showing up authentically and still growing, was a challenge for me. It took me a while. I had to slow bake into that. And then one of my mentors told me, she said, grow, don't change, just grow. Don't apologize for growing. And so I think that was the second piece, just getting very comfortable in my own skin and showing up authentically. Now that also comes with age and maturity. So then you get to a point where it is what it is, right? You just get comfortable in your own skin. The last thing I think is, the challenge that I face is self advocating. So you nailed it, about how some men may think they have one or two boxes checked and they'll figure out the rest. I thought I had to be overly prepared and proven in everything I did. And when I think about it, we're not building rocket ships, we're not saving lives here, it's banking. So I had to get comfortable with what I brought to the table, and what somebody was willing to invest and develop in me. So that was another piece, being very comfortable, taking calculated risk, and self-advocating. I think women, a lot of times, we're taught to be so humble, and manage our optics, not being aggressive, not being assertive, not being too bossy, that we kind of put our own candles out. I had to get comfortable shining. So I know I said a lot, but I think it's really, just the networking piece, understanding of the corporate politics, and what really, how to balance that with the work ethic, and then self-advocating and being authentic have probably been the biggest challenges that I had to overcome. I can't hear you, Sarah. Did you go mute on me?
I did. Thank you.
Okay.
I apologize. Yeah. So you mentioned a mentor, and I know that, a mentor and a sponsor are kind of two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about how you found a mentor. What is the difference between a mentor and a sponsor? How did all of that play in for you? How did you identify those people, and find someone who could kind of help bring you along?
Absolutely. I think mentorship, you can seek out a mentor. That's what I did. I found someone that I respected and admired, and that I wanted to role model myself after. I also think you have to make sure, what by mentors by definition, right? People can't take you where they haven't been. So think about where you want to go. I had to really think about, what I wanted to do. And most of the time, um friends, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I didn't know. But I found a mentor that, distributed the leadership, or demonstrated the leadership qualities, and the gravitas and the humility, something that I resonated with. And that's how I sought out my mentor or my mentors, right? And I like to have diverse mentors. So I like to have a guy who's a mentor, because they have an entirely different perspective, like we just talked about. More senior women, who fits in that bucket. And then my best mentors are people that just, I think, have a good integration. I don't want to say balance, because I don't believe there's any such thing anymore as work-life balance, but have a good integration with being a wife, a mom, a partner, a community leader. Just their personal pieces, because that's what you work for. So that's how I was able to kind of seek out a few mentors. Sponsorship, a little bit different. It's a little bit more organic. You can ask someone to sponsor, to be your sponsor in the noun form. I like to think of sponsor as a verb. So sponsor meaning the act of advocating for me, speaking up for me, being there when I'm not in the room, and really clearing road blocks. One of the best sponsors I ever had, I didn't even know. He just saw my work product. Again, you never know when someone's looking at you, right? So I tried to operate with integrity, meaning what are you doing when you think no one's looking, because someone's always looking. And he sought me out, and they put me in this staffing role, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never even opened up a requisition. And he said, here's how sponsorship works. We're gonna sing your praises to high heaven when you do something great, and we're gonna run air cover for you when you mess up. And if this role doesn't work out, we'll find something else for you. And I'm like, are you serious? And I think a lot of us think, if we take certain chances or risk and we fail, then we're out of the company. Well, that's where sponsorship comes in. And a lot of that sponsorship happens very organically. People want to sponsor you, not your function, not your role. They want to invest in you, the person. So again, just being that authentic self, what came into play, because authentically, I'm Calandra all day long. And if I ever show up differently, I could lose my sponsorship and the people advocating for me. So that personal connection was really where sponsorship showed up, different from mentoring, because I can just pick up the phone and get real-time coaching and hang up. The sponsorship is the relationship building, and it's the act of using your voice.
Sure. So you talked about, your sponsor is there. We all know that, we learn as much from our failures as we do from our successes. Was there a time that you didn't get picked for a promotion, or that someone wasn't noticing that you were doing a good job, or you wanted to lead a project and they chose someone else? What did you learn from that? What motivated you to get back on the horse and keep pushing when that happened?
Absolutely. So I like to think of that period in my life. I'm actually getting a visual of what you just articulated. I went through a period, probably about 4 years, where it seemed like nothing was working right. I just had, so this was like 2003. So I had a 1 year old daughter. My daughter Logan actually is turning 18 on Sunday. So I just had a baby. I was 40 pounds overweight. My husband at the time and I had decided to divorce. So I'm divorcing with a 1 year old baby. I had slowed down my career to um, invest in my family, and now I've got to ramp up again. And then at work. So if that's not enough, I give you that context and backdrop at home, because now the intersection, it juxtaposed at work. I think I was projecting, and I felt undervalued at work. I'm working my butt off. I'm traveling 50% of the time I'm missing time with my new baby. And I felt like, for example, I'd be in a meeting and I'm getting mansplained to. Well, what she really meant to say, no, I said what I meant to say. But I felt like I was constantly getting critiqued or edited or over scripted, or to your point, um, I just felt invisible. And I think I responded kind of poorly because I had a lot of other stuff going on. And I didn't retaliate, but I didn't stand up for myself in the way I should have. I didn't get time on that person's calendar that was committing the offense. I just kind of let it fester. And I think that was probably one of the most challenging times, because I was really at a crossroad of, who are you, Calandra? How are you going to meet this challenge head on? How are you going to meet this moment? Don't let life beat you. You need to rise to the moment. And I was just exhausted. I just couldn't hold it all together. And my one of my sponsors at the time, who had gotten me my first promotion, he just called me and said, "Hey, let's go grab some lunch. I've been noticing you lately." And we just had a real talk conversation. So that's the other thing I wanted to call out during the rough moments. You've got to be willing to let people tell you some stuff you may not want to hear. Feedback is a gift. And how we perceive ourselves is one way, and you could be going through something, but it's how you manage it and how you handle it in front of everyone. And my sponsor was human enough, and personable enough and cared enough to kind of coach me through it. And he was like, "Don't go through this all alone." If I could put in another point, I actually started, seeing someone. I started seeing a therapist. And in my community, again, I'm a Black African American woman from a rural town. You don't go to the psychiatrist or the therapist. So managing a lot of cultural norms also became an opportunity for me too. My mom was like, "Are you okay? I'm moving. I'm coming down." And I'm like, "No, I'm just talking it out." "Well, you need to talk to your pastor." I'm like, My pastor is great. I need to talk to someone objective, professional, but it was the biggest stigma. So I know I gave you a lot in that answer, but it was, life showed up, work wasn't going well. I've got people depending on me, and I had to get out of my comfort zone, open up, share what was going wrong, and be willing to get the help and leverage the resources that my great benefits at the bank, by the way, paid for. But I had to get out of my comfort zone and just look myself in the mirror, and that's often the hardest thing to do. But once you do that, you can really take off.
Well, we really appreciate you sharing, that those personal stories, and really, I mean, you said you're real, and and we
I hope I
appreciate
didn't
that.
dump too much. I hope I didn't scare everybody off.
No, not at all. I mean, I think that those are the kinds of things, a lot of times people feel like they have to hide those kind of things, but that it's seen as a weakness rather than trying to work through something or to become your better
Yeah.
self. So
You
we
can't
really,
cut yourself in half when you go to work, right? You can't leave a part of you at home and say, "I'm just going to show up in this way," and act like it's not there. That's just the most unrealistic thing ever. So I had to just bring it all together. So thank you for acknowledging that.
yeah. So tell us about ways that you lead or have led outside of your career. I know you serve on several boards. Tell us why you chose to support those organizations and how that kind of involvement has impacted you personally and professionally.
Absolutely. So NAACP local chapter. Again, I don't do anywhere near as much as I should, specifically in this environment, right? We're in one of the most, I think, polarizing environments this country's ever seen. My community, while I love it, it's the place that raised me. NAACP is something that I became a part of just because I wanted to give back to the people who gave to me. And again, I want to make sure from a civil rights perspective that I'm doing my part. It's also about learning. So when I choose an organization to become a part of, not only do I want to support and contribute, I want to learn. So if I shift that over to communities and schools, even though my daughter's about to graduate and go off to Spelman, I want to make sure again that I'm paying it forward. So, lifting as I climb, paying it forward, giving back to what was given to me. That's really why I joined the organizations I joined, and how I like to show up. I think the last thing is just the parent advocacy pieces. There are so many children that don't have a Calandra, that don't have a Sarah, And I think someone was a voice for me once, and I want to make sure that I'm being that voice. So whatever I get become a part of, it's a combination of I want to contribute and give back and pay it forward, and then be a blessing as to be people were a blessing to me. But I also want to learn and grow. So I kind of let those two things meet.
Very good. So I want to get to questions. We're kind of answering some of them along the way. We have a few others that are coming in, but you are diversity and inclusiveness executive. So why does greater representation of women and people of color matter? Why does it matter in corporate America? Why does it matter on boards and commissions? Why does it matter in elected office?
Representation matters, period. You can't be what you can't see. It is so important, so critical that that we not only show up, but that we see ourselves. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be probably in eighth, ninth grade. I wanted to be Claire Huxtable, and I don't know if y'all remember the Cosby Show. I wanted to be Claire Huxtable, and that's because I wanted to be professional. I wanted to dress well. I wanted to be a humanitarian. She was smart. Women in my community are amazing and smart and talented, but I didn't see the professionalism. Everyone, the most professional person I saw was a school teacher. And there's nothing wrong with being a school teacher. School teachers are amazing. I think they're the most underpaid people on the planet, but I wanted to be something that I couldn't see. So back to your question, representation matters. It matters that women can see themselves, that people of color, blacks, Latinas, um, Asian Americans, LGBT plus, people with disabilities, people with a military background, people with kids. I mean, it matters that you see yourself so that you can relate and that you can aspire, you can contribute. Your voice is heard. We can't all be at the same place at the same time, but representation matters. So I think it's just so important. And then I think it was the late the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg that said women should be at all places where decisions are made. So if I think about just why women need to show up, there is power in our pact. When we move together, when we support one another, it is a beautiful thing to behold. So when you see women in leadership making big decisions, influencing change, being change agents, magical things happen. So I think it's super important that women are represented in all areas at all levels. So I'm just super passionate about it. I could talk about that all day, Sarah.
We had a little chat yesterday just about something personal when we were getting to know each other. And she told me what she told me. And then she said, that's my thing, inclusiveness. And I was like, I can see it already. You do it in all areas of your life, not just while you're at work.
That's right.
So we do have a couple of questions. And I think this is one that you've touched on to a certain extent, but what is your advice for women who are still learning to advocate for ourselves? How do you get over feeling like, I think that there are definitely women are taught to be quiet and be good and be agreeable, and not that advocating for yourself is how do you get over feeling like advocating for yourself is contrary to some of those things, or just getting past caring whether it's contrary to that or not?
Um, I think it takes practice, and I say do it in small steps. Start at home. Start whether with your family. Whether you're a member of a church. I think advocating for yourself self has to start small. And it's okay to announce to the people that you're working with or the people that you're involved with or that you love to say, hey, I'm going to do a better job of choosing me. And I had to do that, with my family. My husband, my daughter. I have two bonus children from my husband's previous marriage, which I love just like I love my daughter. But I had to make a public announcement about a year and a half ago. Like, look, I'm going to choose Calandra. I know I'm mommy and wife. I'm going to choose Calandra. I was Calandra before I was somebody's mom, before I was somebody's wife. I'm going to choose myself. So here's what it's going to look like. Because if you start advocating and being, just completely doing a shift, I think people are going to be like, what's going on with her? Is everything okay? This is not about you. It's
Right.
about me. I want to do a better job of taking care of myself. And I like to use the um, analogy, how you're on a plane and, and they give you these instructions, in case of an emergency, and the air mask drop, you put your own mask on first. Well, you can't save someone or be a good wife or a good mother or a good partner or a good teammate or a manager or a leader if you're not taking care of yourself first. So advocacy is not a bad word. Self advocacy, I call it self full, not selfish. Choose yourself first. Choose her, choose yourself, that thing inside of you that wants to do wonderful things and break glass everywhere. Choose her first, and then you show up better for other people. So long answer, short question. I think practice advocacy, small things. Be stingy with your time a little bit. Say no more. Say yes to things that you want to do. Start saying no a little bit to some of the smaller things. So that's how I'd start. Again, I could talk about this all day, but I think it's small steps.
I love it's really funny that you say the analogy about the airplane. Sometimes when I start feeling guilty about doing something that I feel like I need to do for myself, I think of that. So that's really interesting that that's it's like
Hmm.
I can't help someone else. If I can't breathe oxygen, I can't help someone else breathe
That's
oxygen
exactly
or
right.
whatever it may be. I love that. How about we have another question about tips on building relationships and being visible in the corporate world when you're 100% virtual. This last year has been so different for all of us. Certainly you came up in a very different environment, and we all hope that that things are going to, well, the normal is going to be new. It's not going to look like the same thing that it did before a year ago. But how do you, let people know what you're doing? How do you shine when we're all on Zoom?
So I think I had to work on building relationships in a different way. So we have something called Skype or instant message at the bank. I'll ping someone, just say, "Hey, good to see you." That's that just being top of mind, or so good to hear your voice. How's your family? Or I love your backdrop. And I know that's so simple, but it's so powerful. That human touch. I think the other thing is if you're building agendas or how I've been in meetings, I'll deliberately look and see who's on the meeting, and I'll call on someone I haven't heard on. People like that. People don't want to feel invisible. It's hard enough. You got your kids and your dog and everything else in the background. How do you, just be deliberate and intentional, be proactive about inclusion, sending a nice note after a meeting, or if you know someone's going to be on a call. Hey, I see you're on this conference call, or you're on this project as well. Looking forward to catching up. Little things like that. I think we often lose the human touch, um, because we are so busy being corporate. Sometimes it's as simple as just being human. I think somebody's trying to get in my house. I apologize.
No. Yeah, I think just being seen. I mean, or letting people know that you see them, not worrying so much about being seen, but reaching out to other people and kind of breaking past some of that. I hate to say isolation, but to a certain extent, I think that that's the case. We're all working in our little silos and making sure that we are still taking the time to make those connections, just doing it in different ways. You're not sticking your head in someone's office, but sending them a little note or taking the time to do that. Very good. Well, if there are any other questions, we would love to have those from the group. Calandra, this has been so insightful. Again, we really appreciate your,
No, this was great.
you being real and sharing your story. I think that it's so helpful for women to see someone who's gone before them and get some of those little tidbits, the things that everyone is going through, to hear that other people have experienced it and gotten past it. Congratulations on your daughter graduating from high school. That is a huge accomplishment. Good job, mom. I think we all, everyone takes for granted, but boy, it takes a lot of work to get them there. And to be able to do that and have such a great career as well, you should really be commended.
Especially with virtual calculus and physics and things happening at the counter. I went to school to be an English teacher, so I asked for no math and no science and just get me out of the school quickly. So you can imagine me trying to help her in a virtual environment. But we're making it. We did it. We're almost there.
You're almost there. That's right. But you know what? I think as a parent, it's we're never almost there, right? There's always, I think even when they're grown, it's you're still a mom, still a parent.
Always.
Yeah, excellent. Well, again, we want to thank Bank of America for their support. I think that, Bank of America is walking the walk and talking the talk as far
Absolutely.
as women and inclusiveness and diversity. And, you're showing that, they're showing that by their support of women in leadership. So thank you so much for being with us here today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us. Um, and if there's anything else, is there anything else that you'd like to impart before we head out today?
Just parting words. Thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure. I just say support other women, period. Just support each other. Again, there is power in our pack. Make sure you have women on your teams, on your boards, in your in your mentor circles. Just pay it forward. It's so important that we continue to support each other. Again, it's a powerful, beautiful thing when we move together. So add me to your circle. I'm looking forward to being a part of your journey, hopefully.
Thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.